Alrighty, welcome back to my channel. Alright, after we rebuilt this carburetor, I wanted to explain to everybody about broken post. Now, like I say, what's happening is when these pins get tight in here, whether you're drilling it, whether we're hammering it in or trying to get it out, these posts break. And depending on what part of the post breaks, depends on how you repair it. As you can see here, the cradle's still in good shape, so it didn't break at the baseline here, it broke at the cradle. And I'm going to show you how to do the modification on this, since this is a simple fix because we still have the half moon cradle is still in good shape. So all thing we do here, I don't know if you can see right here, but we drill a hole in the meaty part of this thing. You don't want to drill it up here at the baseline because that's already your weak spot. So what we do is we drop this drill hole down to where you can see there's a little bit of more material from this point on, from the base of this down to the base of your post. Don't drill above this line. That's not good. So you're just going to drill a hole, and what we do is we just put the pin in and safety wire it. Now it's a simple fix. You don't have to take a lot of tools to do it. You just drill your hole. We're just going to put our pin in. Like I say, now this pin is the one with the head on it. I don't do the aftermarket on these because that's just the way I do it on a repair. And if you can see on the other side, normally I grind that down to where that pin just sticks inside that post. So all I have to do is put my ice pick in there and knock it out. So you just sets in there, you tap it out. There's no chance of breaking another post because we don't want that. Now, as you can see, I drill my hole here in the meaty part of that post where it's really strong. It's a strong base, and as you can see right here, I take a Dremel tool cutter wheel and I just make a little groove, and that's to line my wire up with. Now on this one, I just use standard wire. This is 24 gauge galvanized steel. So we just feed it through, and that wire will ride in that groove and help keep it in line. Now I don't put that cutter wheel inside here. I do it just to the tip of that because I don't want to make that post any weaker than it is. So that's why I kind of stop right, maybe a millimeter or two from the top of this with the groove, because I don't want any more of that material to come off. So we're just going to flip it around. And when you do your tie off, now you can either use needle nose or, if you have a safety wire tool, you can get in there and spin it and safety wire it. All I'm going to do is just my needle nose. And when you tie this down, you want it tied to the bottom, as far as close to the bottom as you can. Because if you tie it up at the top, it might interfere with the float, and we don't want that. Now I'm not going to do this tight right now. I'm just going to do it for show. Oop, get on there. Because all we're doing is just holding this. We just need something to hold that pin down with. Okay? You just make it tight. Better if you have one of them safety wire spinners. I got one in my toolbox. I haven't got to get it. Okay. And we're going to cut it. We're going to fold it downward. It stays out of the float. And like I say, all we're doing is keeping this pin pinned down because we still have the cradle. And there's nothing wrong with that cradle. So all we need to do is just make this tight, and you can always pull that pin out too as well for your next carb repair. Like I say, it'll be loose, but it won't be when you put the pin in. Okay. So from this side, I'll show you what it looks like. So we just take our float, put our bail on, use our finger to hold it down with, put it on just like normal. That should be able to slide in there. Of course, it'll be tighter. When you have more time, you can just tighten it up. And what it is, that wire will sit in that groove. Of course, I'll tighten it up here in a minute, but this is just for show. That wire sits in that groove, and it won't wiggle around. You can see we still have our carb movement. I mean our float movement, because if you can see right here, the float needle on this bracket hits that half moon, so there's no movement between there. And you can see if you hold that pin, see, it doesn't affect it. That wire, if you can see, that wire will not affect the movement of the float. Free movement, and that's a good fix. Cradle's intact. It didn't break at the post, and this will last a long time. I've built plenty of carbs that look like that. As long as the cradle's intact. Now, if the cradle's not intact, then it's a different technique, and I'll show you that right now. Of course, after I turn the camera off, I'm going to tighten that wire down, and so it's real snug. All right, but this is just for show. Okay. Now, this is a BS28. It came off of a Yamaha 550. It was an XJ700X Maxim, and this one has a broken post. And I've already pulled the pin out so I can show you. Now, there's two ways to fix this post. Now, as you can see on this post, it broke below the cradle line. Okay, you can see it actually broke at an angle. Normally in this situation, there's two ways you can do it. You take your Dremel tool cutter, and you're going to see this broke at a downward angle, high on the left, low on the right. We would level this off, and then we take a post from another carburetor. All right, and it would set in this spot. And what we would do is we would drill a hole in the center of this, and we drill a little small hole in the center of that, and we're going to put a dowel in there, a little metal dowel, and we're going to epoxy it. And for the epoxy, you would use I use this JB Weld high heat. Gasoline doesn't bother it. Now, I don't know how many years this carburetor's never had that epoxy on there, but I've heard of others going about 10 years with it, with that epoxy, and the gasoline won't dissolve it. So in this particular situation, let's get this pin out, and I'm going to show you the second modification. When you can see it right here, is we're going to make a post out of sheet metal. So the one technique, you would just take since this is beveled on one end, high on the left, low on the right, we'd make that straight. Of course, you're going to drill a hole in your post here. You're going to drill a post there. We're going to put a metal dowel in there, and we're just going to set it and epoxy it, so it would look something similar to that again. You know, of course, you can you'd have to measure your heights, but this is a way to do it. Of course, then now you've got your post back, and if your glue breaks free, the pin will still help it stay in place, because remember, you got your cap sitting on top of this. You just have to play it by ear, and it keeps you from throwing away a carburetor. All right, so this is the post method. Get a post off an old beat up carburetor, and that's how you do it on this one. Now, the second thing you can do is, I want everybody to look at this. In this particular situation, instead of epoxying a post, I made a frame for it. It's just a sheet metal post, and I'm already using that screw hole. I'm going to take this out and let everybody look at it. to give you an idea of how to fix yours. And I've used this carburetor for years, and I've got in my XJ700X. A long time I've had it this way. And all this is now this is made of aluminum. You're just going to take aluminum stock. You can either take an aluminum stock and fold it. This particular was aluminum angle iron. And we're just going to make a half moon here. Of course, it's going to take a lot of shaping. And you're just going to make a post handle. Of course, you know, you can drill your hole to put your pin in. And you're going to make sure that that's the tightest pin possible. You don't want it wallowing out inside there. And of course, you know, you're going to have to adjust for float height. So in this particular one, of course, this metal was a lot taller, and I just kept shaving it down, shaving it down, shaving it down until I got the right height where it's perfectly level across. All right, and this is what it looks like. We're already using our screw hole to hold down our seat with, and that'll just give you an idea of how to make a post instead of having to glue one, because eventually the glue epoxy will fail eventually. I don't know how long it takes, but I know that gasoline is pretty corrosive and it will fail eventually. So if you use this technique, of course it'll never fail. But that's just give you an idea of some of my Texas redneck engineering comes up with in my garage. Because if not, then you got to throw this carburetor away. Just because you broke a post, like I say, now there's just two techniques. You can do your find an old carburetor and start cutting these posts off and epoxying them back in, or you can just make a post. It eliminates it. There's no glue to dissolve, nothing to fail. Sets right in, and it's level. It's perfectly level. All right. That's just some stuff I come up with. These old carburetors, when you break a post, and that's just how you have to modify them. Unless you can find them on eBay, you know, that's about the only options you got. You can either epoxy your post back in, or do like I do and just make one. But you can see how I've got that half moon cut to where it fits around the jet post, and we're already using the screw for our seat, and it makes a perfect post. It doesn't move. Once it locks in, it don't move, and there's no epoxies involved. It's just a good way to do a post repair. Food for thought. I just thought y'all might think it was interesting, the stuff I come up with. I'm not going to patent it, put it that way. If somebody wants to patent it, knock yourself out. Free of charge. Alrighty. That's it for this. Bye. Alrighty, welcome back. Alright, now the first series I did was to show you how to rebuild a carburetor start to finish. The second part of that series was how to fix broken post. And the reason I'm showing you all this stuff is because these carburetors are hard to find, and if something breaks or if you drop it and it cracks, I mean there's really not a lot you can do because they're just so hard to find, and it's hard to find people to repair these things. I do restorations, and so I have carburetors that I can substitute, but there's some things that I can't substitute, and I have to make things to make things work. That's just part of the restoration, dilemma, supply and demand. Now I'm going to show you this particular carburetor was given to me. I went ahead and repaired it and made some changes. Of course, I'm going to have to modify things to make things work nowadays. Now, when I got this carburetor rack, this number 3 carburetor was cracked. Now, not this particular one, but the number 3 that was in this original rack was cracked. And once this cast aluminum cracks, it's almost impossible to repair the cracks. I don't know of anybody that's tried to re-weld one that's ever lasted. So once these get dropped and cracked, it's just, you're just gonna have to toss them away. So I have of course a bunch of BS33 racks that are, you know, need repair, and I'm getting to them. But I've got one rack that in my personal collection that I just couldn't repair for some other reasons. Either way, I took the number 2 carburetor out of that other rack that I have, and this is actually a number 2 carburetor in the number 3 position. And I'm going to show you how you can kind of do this. I'm going to go ahead and split this apart again, since we did the last time. And I'm just going to show you kind of the differences. I'll put these back together and kind of explain what I'm doing here. Okay. This carb rack number 1 and 2 are mated. In other words, these two are mated with this fuel line, and they're mated with this air line. And if you can see on this side here, this air line hole is blocked off at the factory. It's not drilled. So these middle parts are drilled, and if you look at this side, that part is not drilled from the factory. But even though they're identical, it's just a matter of what you want to mate together. And same thing here. Of course, that's not drilled. It's blank. And the only thing mates these two sets of carburetors is a fuel line. Because if you can see, this one on the number 3 would be sealed off at the factory. Of course, the number 3 and 4 is only matched for a fuel line and an air line. Of course, you look on this side, it's not drilled. Okay. So what you can do is, since that number 3 original carburetor was cracked, I couldn't replace it. It could not be repaired. And the what was broken in here was that pilot jet post was cracked right down the middle. What happens normally when I see that is somebody tried to fix it, and what happens is, remember I said when you put those pilot jets in there, don't screw them in there too tight. Well, I'm going to guess that he either screwed that pilot jet in too tight, or he broke the threads off and tried to re-drill it, and cracked the post inside here. And that post cracked all the way down to the base of this. So it can't be repaired. It's cracked, it's gone. So I had an old rack with had some, it was a parts rack, BS33 set, and I just use it for spare parts and whatnots. It's non-functional, put it that way. But the carburetors are, the number 2 in that rack was good. So I take the number 2 rack out, and this is it right here. This is the number 2 in the number 3 position. And I'm going to show you how I modified it. Okay, now, like I say, on the original number 3, this air line is blocked off because there's no air line that matches. It's just mated with the fuel line. The only thing air line is the number 4. It's matched in the center. So what I do, I don't know if you can see there or not. The only thing I do is you're going to seal this off with the super glue. I mean the JB Weld high heat epoxy. And like I say, this has been working for a while. I know it's a couple years, but it hasn't dissolved yet. So, and then what we do is we go on this side, and of course, since this is number 2 in this position, of course the number 2 air line is blocked off at the factory. It's not drilled. So the only thing we do here is I modify it and I drill it. And I'm going to take this bowl off and let you look in there. But all this is, I'm taking a number 2, modifying it for the number 3 position, because the only thing that separates these two is the fuel line here. Okay, there's no air line. So all thing we do is we take a number 2, put it in number 3 position, block off this air line, open up this air line, and so we can have our overflow air tube. And we're just going to take this off, and I'll show you what it looks like inside there. like I say, on these old carburetors, you can't find them. And people that have them don't want to sell them. Like I've got a bunch of racks that I'll never get rid of. They're for parts. They're for other bikes that I restore. So you know, it'd be hard for me to get rid of old carburetor racks, even though I have them and I've got a bunch of them. It's just sometimes hard to separate and part with those things. And I know there's people out there that need it, and I mean, I'll do what I can. You know, I have a lot of people write me and ask me for parts, and you know, sometimes I can give them and sometimes I can't. It just depends on what I'm restoring at the time. Okay, we're going to take this out just like normal. Now this is the number 2 carburetor modified for a number 3. Grab my ice pick. Very lightly tap. And again, this is a number 3 that I've modified it with the same wire technique. Same thing, I still have the wire technique. Now on this particular one, you're going to have to drill at an angle because the screw is on this side. Remember, the other one I drilled was on this side. Because this is broke, you're going to have to cut it at the drill at an angle like this. Because if not, you're going to hit that screw back there and there's just no room. So, but this is the same technique. It's the same wire holding it on. It's the same technique. Okay. But if you look inside here, this whole thing is filled with the epoxy cement. Because what happens is, this is an open air line into here. And you can see right down in here. See that screwdriver going in? That's the hole you're going to have to drill out. Because this is going to be matched with number 4. So what we do is we just block off this side. And I just fill the whole thing with epoxy. And of course I'll use a heat gun to dry it quick. And then I let it set for, I let mine set for, they say a couple days, 24 hours, but I let mine set for a whole week. And that's just how I do it before I put gas on there, because like I say, nobody really knows how long these will last with gas. And of course gas, the only time gas will get in this area is if it overflows and it goes up and it has nowhere else to go but out. And that's what these vents are for. It's for your overflow, carb overflow. You have a float that won't shut off. The bowl fills up, and the only way it comes out is these air holes. So you just take a number 2 carburetor, block off this side, drill this side, and now you're back in business. You'll fill this up with epoxy and block that off, and it's good to go. And it works great. Like I say, sometimes you're just going to have to engineer things to make things work. It's just the way it is. And I thought y'all would find that interesting, because I've been told it can't be done, and I'm telling you it can be done. And I'll show you one more reason and one more thing here. I'm gonna put this on with the wire. My pin. See, with that wire in the groove, it sets fine. So all we do is we just put it back in like as if there was a post there. See, it just fits in fine with that wire. Presses in like normal, and you can see works fine. It's not in the way. It's a good fix, and if you can feel right here, there's no wiggle to it. It's tight. There's no wiggle, because if you didn't have that wire holding that down, this float goes up and down like 1,000 times when you go down the highway. It just sits there, and it'll eventually, if you didn't have that wire on there, it would wallow this side out. Of course, it'd be really flopping around, and it'll throw your float heights off. So the only thing you can do is you wire that down, and if you can see, there's no wiggle in here, up and down. You know, the wire holds it in place. There's no failure. Okay. Let's get this back on, and I'll show you something else. I'll just put these in for now. And the reason I show you these videos is maybe you're in the same boat. Maybe you have a carburetor that's wrecked, and there's certain techniques you can do to put them back on the road, because to have a mechanic look at this and try to fix it, he's going to charge a lot of money. And even though I do restorations, of course, you know, there's some things I can charge and some things I can just fix real easy. And again, that's just the way it is. But most mechanics won't even touch something like this. When it comes to modifications, now restoration people like me, it's not a big deal. We already know what to do, and can make it easier and cost effective. Okay? Now, because this is a number 2 carburetor, and I modified it to be in the 3 position, like I say, epoxy this side, drill out this side for your air tube. There's one other thing. On an original number 3 carburetor, this is generally a governor stop, and normally there'd be a set screw in here. And what that does, that this governor will sit on this set screw. It keeps it from moving any farther forward. So if you look inside here, let's just pretend there's a set screw right there. It would open up to about halfway. That butterfly would be, you know, straight across. But because there's no governor set screw, it opens just a little bit more. You can see if there was a set screw, it'd be the base of it right about there. There's not just a little more movement. I don't know, that's probably about maybe 4 or 5, maybe 5 millimeters of extra movement. Now, I'm not going to say that it would be extra speed, because I mean, that bike's already going to be maxed out about 135 to 140. I've never taken it up that fast with this carburetor, so I've never maxed this carburetor out to see if that full position would do it. But even if you were to go full throttle, it's gonna stop anyway, because of the throttle shaft and the butterfly holding everything in place. There's just not much difference. If you go full throttle, it still stops on its own. This is just for your max speed. It works kind of like a governor, but it's not. But it kind of works like that. It just stops on its own. Now, I'm not going to put a set screw in here. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I don't go over 100 miles an hour anyway, that much. But that's just another modification. This is a number 2 carburetor in the number 3 position, and having that set screw right here is not a big deal. Blocking this off with epoxy is not a big deal. Now, drilling this out is a big deal. You're going to have to use a drill press, because it's going to have to be a perfect shot in there. And you don't want to hit the inside of this throttle body, because that goes right into your throttle body. So you have to use a drill press to be very precise, because you don't want to cut through the throttle body inside here. It's not good. But all that is just a overflow. Carburetor floats, fail, the gas goes up, it comes out the air tube and drains out on the ground. And that's just another way to keep these bikes on the road, which is what I'm trying to do. The old XJ models, the 550s, the 650s, 700s, 750s, I try to keep these on the road. A lot of people come to me, ask me questions. I give them the best advice I can. Like I say, there's not very many mechanics around that will try to keep these old bikes up and running. The XJ is my favorite bike. The XJ700X is my favorite bike of all time. I remember seeing one back in 1985, and back when I was in the service, I went into a bike shop and seen one. It was unbelievable. And back in the 80s, we didn't make a lot of money, so I'd always had that on my bucket list. And of course, over time, as time goes by, when I got out of service, I was always looking for one. And then I just started doing restorations from there, and that was even back in, the early 2000s. So now that these bikes are still up and running, it's up to people like us to keep these up and running. If I can make some videos to help you keep yours up and running, then great. We all win. So hope that helps you out. Okay, bye.